All right. Well, yeah. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, team. Thank you all for taking the time to join today's webinar for Oracle Recruiting Booster. Got a couple slides just to set the stage and give some context, and then I'll primarily be in the system. As far as the agenda goes, a couple points here, just talk through the CastleBridge, just who we are, what we do. Then primarily focused on the demo, show and tell, right, of all things recruiting booster, topic du jour, why we're here today. And then from there, talk through some next steps, and lastly, question Q&A. Now, you don't have to hold those questions to the end. In the webinar here, you'll have the Q&A, so definitely use that chat panel, and my counterparts can field those questions as they go, and we can definitely tackle those at the tail end of the session here. So yeah, with that, let me pass it to Lowry for the CastleBridge overview. And Lowry.
I am talking on mute, so hazard
Right.
of the job, I guess. So hello and welcome everybody. I'm Lowry Page, co-founder and principal here at CastleBridge. See a lot of familiar names in the list, so welcome everybody. We're excited to go over Recruiting Booster today. Just a brief snippet on CastleBridge. As many of you know, we focus solely on Oracle Cloud. So the whole company focuses on everything Oracle Cloud. And this allows us to have a lot of depth in Oracle recruiting or payroll or, APA, RGL, all of those good things. So another unique thing about CastleBridge, we are a boutique firm, and our average years of experience with Oracle Cloud is over 10 years. So, we like to say we're not all things to all people, but when it comes to Oracle Cloud, that's definitely our sweet spot. A couple of other notes here. We really pride ourselves on coming in the door with pre-built templates, with pre-built packages. CastleBridge invests a lot up front to go through the new features and functionality from Oracle and really make that investment so that your projects can run smoother and that you really get the best expertise possible as we go through. I'll save everybody the advertisement, but certainly if you have any follow-ups, any questions on this, whether you're using CastleBridge or someone else, we're happy for, I know Matt leads our recruiting practice. He's always happy to have ideas bounced off of him. And I think you'll find that with everybody at CastleBridge. So don't hesitate to reach out. So with that, Matt, I'm going to turn it back over to you and we will dig right into Recruiting Booster.
Perfect. Thank you, Lowry. And like Lowry said, Matt Runkle, for those that haven't had the pleasure of meeting yet, thank you for taking the time to join, for everybody, that is. Yeah, like Lowry said, I head up the recruiting and onboarding practice at CastleBridge. I started back in the Taleo days, and then as soon as Oracle Recruiting Cloud was announced at Open World, I jumped on board as an early adopter for that. Haven't looked back since, although I still like to look at Taleo every now and then. And then as soon as Recruiting Booster is announced, gosh, I couldn't wait to dive in and enable that offering and just really get into the new features and functionalities here. And so I'm really excited to share this stuff with you today. And really, if you look at the features, as you may or may not know, you could really club them into one of three categories. You have hiring events, enhancements to the recruiting assistant, and messaging. I stress the word enhancements to the recruiting assistant because while not a lot of people take advantage of it, I don't know why, Oracle Recruiting offers just out of the box without ODA recruiting assistant. It's just that Recruiting Booster takes that delivered offering one step further. But then with the messaging, you have two-way messaging, a very popular request that Recruiting Booster brings to fruition. And then also interview scheduling. So again, I'll go through each one of these pieces, be hanging out with some of my friends. I got Conrad, the recruiter, Rose Ranger, the interview coordinator, and a couple candidates along the way as well. So, like I said, we'll dive in and look at this. The great thing is that you can take advantage of one of these features with Recruiting Booster or all of them. So just keep that in mind, and I guess that may be a little bit of a spoiler alert as I talk through next steps. But yeah, without further ado, I will go ahead and dive into the demo here. As I said, I know folks were still kind of joining. Definitely take advantage. It sounds like they still are, but yeah, definitely take advantage of the Q&A as part of this webinar. So yeah, let me get away from PowerPoint. Everybody breathe a collective sigh of relief there, and we'll get into the system. And I'll jump between a few windows. I have myself, Matt Runkle, have Conrad, the recruiter. That's where I'm going to go first, and then Rose, the interview coordinator. I guess full transparency, I'm in our demo environment, but there's no real smoke and mirrors here. What I've set up here for today's stuff, we could jump in, you procure the recruiting booster license, we could dive right in and do these same things in one of your lower environments as well. So another thing is just to be mindful of everybody's time. Yeah, I'm going to jump between a couple browser windows, but I'm not going to toggle back and forth between devices. I do have some screenshots just from my phone, but just to be mindful of everybody's time. I know we have a short time, so I'm not going to toggle between a bunch of devices. So like I said, let me look at Conrad first. Conrad, remember, is our recruiter. So we're going to go into hiring. And I kind of do this with the assumption that most of the folks here, present company, are at least familiar with Oracle recruiting. If you're not, well, welcome. And so really just to shine a spotlight on it with Recruiting Booster, the events feature, the one of the three pieces that I was looking at here, talking through events, Recruiting Booster brings that to fruition. So, you have your campaigns where you can encourage folks to, um, uh, sorry, refer friends, apply to jobs and everything else. But events, what if we're on site and we want to have campaigns and stuff, get folks to register for those events? We have three here. We have the Greatest, which is a private happy hour event that I'm going to invite some folks to. We have a virtual career fair, and we also have a university career fair. Lots of recruiting events coming up, and you can see Conrad, I'm slammed. Conrad is a busy guy at the beginning of April here. So with this event at the University of Ithaca, right now, I don't have anybody registered yet, but that's okay. What I really like is that folks can pre-register, and then I can also measure the metric here of attended. Release 23B, so just later on this year, you'll have some added metrics to this dashboard that we see here that allows us to see like the follow through of the folks that have applied and ultimately been hired to these jobs. So just to further measure the effectiveness of these events, like, yeah, it's great that we have folks that want to pre-register, measure the folks that have attended and just drop off just their name in the hat, and I can follow up with these folks. But then further, who's actually applying to jobs, who is ultimately getting hired. And that's where, as Conrad, right, he slammed this April, he may take a step back and look and see, wow, that happy hour was really effective. Yeah, we only invited 20 people, but we got a bunch of people hired from that. Versus University of Ithaca, maybe we had a lot of conversations, but we only hired a few people. May not be worth the time and effort. I don't know. So these events, though, that we create, they can be public, meaning that they can be posted on the career site, that the candidate can see that and ultimately register for that. If I'm at a kiosk, if I'm at my kiosk or my booth at the career fair here at the university, I can have, a QR code where somebody checks in if they pre-registered, Or if they're just walking up and I'm having a conversation with them and they just want to submit their name and maybe their resume, they can scan a QR code at my kiosk to show that they had attended. That way, Conrad, when he gets back to the office, he can look at those folks and follow up with them and add them to requisitions as necessary, add them to candidate pools. So maybe I don't have a role for Johnny that I spoke with just yet, but he would be a really good fit at the company, and I could add him to one of my candidate pools. So lots of options, and in short, a direct response to that issue or problem, the scenario where I'm not asking Johnny. Johnny's not going to fully apply to the job today. He doesn't want to do that, nor does he even want to sign up for the talent community. We're just having a conversation right now. He just wants to hand me his resume. This allows for that. And so let me show you just from Conrad here, this event. I'll pull up one other event, and then I'm going to pivot and show from a candidate's standpoint or viewpoint, I should say. So with this event, again, we see this metrics of that. And from the audience, I can actually invite people. So maybe I talked with them in the fall. I was on campus at the university in the fall, and I can't wait to be back. And I already had a candidate pool. I can invite people. I can take people from my pool, folks that I've been nurturing and following up with, maybe making contact with, and letting them know that I'm going to be back on campus. And I can invite them to attend, letting them know that I'm here. So I've reached out to a bunch of friends here, and I shouldn't say friends, but folks that I got to know back in the fall, and I've invited them, let them know that I'm coming. And then I had mentioned also those QR codes. You're like, yeah, how do you do that? There's this check-in URL. So I just copied the check-in URL as Conrad. I'm prepping, I'm getting ready. That career fair is coming up. Dang, April is right around the corner. Here's the page for the check-in. So as Conrad's prepping his deck for that, let me pull that up here, right? So you can have his little QR code saying, pre-registered, check in here. And so that's for our folks that I spoke with in the fall that I invited them to register for this event, or even for the folks that found the event on my career site. I don't have to invite them. They can actually find that on the career site. You can enable that to where it's there. I'll show that here in just a minute. You also have where if they haven't registered yet, fine, let us know. And that's also part of that conversation. So as Conrad's actually there on site for that career fair in the moment, having a really good conversation with Johnny. Johnny wants to submit his resume. How do I do that? He can just scan this QR code and do that. So easy ways to just generate that and prep for his deck without having to take a lot of time. I just used the Google's tool here. That's why we see the little T-Rex of create QR code for the page. The little T-Rex did that. I'd probably go to like a QR code generator so I could plug in the company logo, maybe change the shape or whatever. But again, no smoke and mirrors. I just simply grabbed the check-in link, created a QR code, and then as Conrad, I plugged it into my deck. And then I also plugged in, did the same thing for my registration page. So again, just to replay that, what I really like about the events though, whether they're public or private, that I can measure and invite folks to pre-register. I can track those people. I can quickly and easily come back, next week after the event and follow up with these people and add them to requisitions as necessary. It's like, oh yeah, he would be awesome at this intern role or in this manufacturing environment if I was at community college or whatever it might be, right? Or actually he's going to be spring or a fall grad of next year, so I'll add him to a candidate pool, keep in touch, and go from there. So lots of use cases, lots of scenarios. I know I'm using the university one as an example here. One other one, like I said, virtual. So yeah, you have a physical in-person location. I can also have a web conference link. And with all of these events, just kind of show what they look like, feel like. Um, I will go to the career site here. Here I go again, firing up a bunch of tabs. But these events are posted on the career site. You can search for them, you can find them, you can see what's going on. The public ones are. I'll get to the private ones here in just a second. I mentioned that happy hour, not open bar, not wide open, limited number of attendees at this thing, just a targeted audience. But for the virtual career fair, it's like, looks good. Tell me more. Take a look at the event here. See the details of it. Yeah, I like it. Be on hand to discuss this. Sign up to learn more about opportunities in office, remote, hybrids. Sounds good to this guy. I like it. So go ahead and register. You don't have to have an account, right? And so you just simply register, and it has its own flow. So all I'm scooping up here, and I'll actually show that, is let's do that. Quick and easy. But if the recruiting administrator as a team, you all are able to in full control of exactly how much information we're gathering here. The idea with events, though, is that it's short and sweet. We're just really getting that contact information and giving them the opportunity to maybe submit their resume or import their profile, but just really short and sweet. Because remember, they're not applying to a job, they're not signing up for the talent community, they're registering for this event. And so, I go here and register, and boom. So that was for the virtual career fair. The university one, show that, where for University of Ithaca, the registration page, where I'm looking at this, and the guts of this is just simply an image, the event details, and the event description. So Conrad's able to just set this up pretty quick, pretty easy. And what's great is he can recycle that. So as he goes on to the next university, or, hey, we have this spring one, maybe I grab a fall picture, with the leaves going, or football, or whatever it might be, that I can just use my last one as a baseline and clone that. So, whoops, sorry about that. All right, so for events, the private ones, like I said, those are ones where you can even cap your audience. This one, it's a special happy hour at the gym where Muhammad Ali trained, which is pretty sweet. And so with this one though, it's a small space in downtown Louisville, really great space, but it's capped at 20 people. And again, it's not open bar. It's not posted on the career site for the world to see. This is a targeted event where I've invited some folks from my candidate pool for that. So, I can see from this audience, I can see the folks that were invited. I'll go back to that click, but my audience, I just had some folks there that are in Louisville here that have been invited to attend. They haven't yet responded to that invitation, but as they respond to that, then I can see who's registered and then further who has attended. Like I said, with release 23B, we'll start to see later on this year some more metrics that will become available for seeing who actually applied to a job and ultimately got hired. This event space isn't cheap. Doing an event like this isn't cheap. It's not just time. There's real money doing this thing. So, I want to make sure that it's an effective thing if we want to be able to do that again and justify the cost of such a thing. The layouts, and you can tell I really like events. That's why I think I'm spending a little bit more time than I should on that. I'll pivot and show those other three categories here in just one moment. But like I said, just the guts of this is that Conrad just grabs an image, plugs that into play. We have the event information, the description of the event, and then I can control the registration form, which is simply that apply flow. So I showed just that Profile import, personal information, short and sweet. That's all we need. You say, not so fast, Matt or Conrad. Need a little bit more information than that. That's fine. We can work together and get that set up for them. We're also in full control. Remember, this is a private event. And so there is still a vehicle or way for folks to register for that. But you can control that where events would only show if you have multiple career sites, like Conrad actually does. He has a pure campus career site. So if we only wanted the University of Ithaca, I have this shown on the main site, but if I only wanted on the campus site, that's where it would only show. So we're in control of a lot of really good things. But Conrad and myself, we don't have to get into the weeds too much on that today. All right, so mentioned hiring events. Remember that we got public ones that are on the career site for the world to see, that folks can stumble upon them, share them, do all sorts of things with them. Folks can pre-register and then check in when they get there. Or if they just kind of show up to your booth, if it's that kind of event, a community event, they can register, and that way you've captured that information. Again, the great thing is that it's all under one roof, all in one cloud, to where you can tap into those analytics versus being some third-party island solution. So again, really good thing with events. All right, moving on to recruiting assistant and two-way messaging. So with recruiting assistant, like I mentioned, let me show that. I have the career site pulled up. And so we have the recruiting assistant, the chatbot, right? And so with this, again, anybody, present company that's on the line that has Oracle recruiting, you can take advantage of this. It's just that recruiting booster takes it one step further. So a few steps further, just with the conversation and the things you can do. Like, tell me more about the company. Tell me about your 401k. Tell me about your benefits. Those are things that with Recruiting Booster, you can train the bot to do, versus like the regular ORC standard one, is more just helping with the job search, more than anything. But still not a bad thing. I don't want to discount that. And again, it comes with, you don't have to have that separate ODA license, Oracle Digital Assistant license, if you don't already have it. So, do you have any jobs in Chicago? I don't know why I'm going up there. I guess it's starting to warm up. We're getting in the spring. I wouldn't be asking that question in the winter. Love you, Chicago, but goodness, small doses. All right, so we got six jobs near Chicago. Asking me, well, want to refine? Actually, there's only six. It's not like there's 100. I'll just take a look, see what's out there. And so with this, got six jobs. Yeah, some pretty good stuff. I'll take a look at them. Production worker, product management intern, HR operations manager. Yeah, human resources business partner. That looks good. I could even apply to that if I want. Now, with that, I mentioned 23B as this evolves with Recruiting Booster. I mean, still, I'd mentioned the analytics and that enhancement with 23B coming up, for events. Sorry. In the digital assistant, one skill or thing that'll be available is easy apply through digital assistant. So for that candidate that wants to actually submit their job application through the digital assistant, that will be possible as part of Recruiting Booster plus the delivered assistant, recruiting assistant. Sorry. All right. So again, chatbot, right, with the digital assistant. The other piece of it that I mentioned is the two-way messaging, right? And that one, gosh, because without that, without Booster, I can send through recruiting messages all day long, and it does it, and it does it quite well. If I have SMS enabled, wow, I can message people all day long. I can send them emails all day long. With Recruiting Booster, it allows for a two-way conversation. Right? So for better or worse, standalone, as you all probably know, for better or worse, it's one-way communication. Booster brings that ever popular request of two-way communication into play. And just to show that, um, I'll show here the events just to show what they looked like, kind of mobile responsive, because I get that question a lot too. It's like, yeah, that looks great. But and remember, I mentioned just be mindful of everybody's time. I'm not going to toggle between devices. But this morning, as I wanted to just go ahead and capture these screenshots from my phone to show exactly what they looked like. So they do play nicely and are inherently mobile responsive, as you would hope and expect. All right, so getting to the messaging piece of it, same deal. So, yeah, I was just interacting with the bot here on using my thumbs on my browser, but also on my phone using my thumbs. It would be just fine. Here, showing the two-way communication. I'm showing it here through the SMS. Again, email is also an option. I'm not going to fire up Gmail plus ORC to be showing that piece of it, but just show that, I had reached out to this guy. Again, I got really excited as soon as this booster became available. I started playing with this. I'm like, hey, George, you got time to meet this week? Sure. Is today good? Yeah, I can meet this afternoon. And so I followed up with George and said, hey, I hope you've been doing well. You have time to chat tomorrow or Friday. Conrad did. And George was like, yeah, that sounds great. Let's do Thursday. So here we are talking about it. And I can show that here in the UI. Give me just a second as Conrad. And as I pull that up, um, just remember, because I know a few folks had joined as I was getting things off the ground. You may have questions. You probably have a lot of them. Maybe you don't. But if you do, definitely use Q&A in the meeting here. I know I sound like a Oracle webinar or something like that. And it's like, remember, use Q&A, not the chat window. Um, anyway, and then again, we'll have time at the end for questions, and we'll field those live if Lowry hasn't already taken care of it. So let me pull up George again. No smoke and mirrors here. Do a little housekeeping with my tabs here and also get some of this out of the way. All right, so we got George. And just to go in the messages area here, we can see that interaction. So that screenshot I showed was actually, from my phone, from my phone number here, messaging George. And so here we can see, and the great thing again, kind of having it all in one cloud and not some bolt-on thing or something separate that's on its own island, that anybody that's privy to this rec and really I should say this candidate has the visibility to see this stuff. So, Conrad, remember, things are bonkers in April. He's a traveling man going to all these events that he had just set up and scheduled. So things are bonkers in April. He's probably going to need some help manning the ship. And so his counterparts, his collaborators, folks jumping in to help can see this and, if jump in as necessary to help communicate with these candidates. And so right now I have the SMS piece enabled. Like I said, you can also do that with the two-way email communication as well. And so if I just wanted to compose a message, I could. Hey George, hope you're enjoying the show. I really do. I hope this is worth everybody's time, that you're getting some out of it. But it actually just came through. Hey George, hope you're enjoying the show, and then I can respond back to it, and then we would see that here in the system here. Yup. All right. Cool. So let me get back here to the third column because I want to leave time for Q&A and talking through next steps. I'm awful at this as far as rambling on and getting excited about events and everything else. But I don't want to cut short on the interview efficiency, and then also the next steps and the Q&A. So I'll get right to it here for interview efficiency. You can really club this together in a few different personas, or break this out, the interview features by a few different personas. This helps the recruiter. For any organization has another persona, the interview coordinator. So that's helping, how you have an onboarding coordinator often, or at some organizations you do, right? If it's not the recruiter, if it's not HR, sometimes you have that interview coordinator. Same deal, especially in Conrad, like I said, he's a traveling man. He's gonna need help in April while he's going to all these events. So he can have an interview coordinator to help manage and schedule those interviews. So you have the recruiter slash manager. I should use that interchangeably. The hiring team. You have the interview coordinator who can help manage the interviews, and then of course the candidates. So speaking to the candidate piece of it really quick. One thing that I really like that Recruiting Booster brings to the table is for the clients that have the Office 365 integration enabled, the calendar availability, this takes it one step further by allowing candidates, how you have the candidate managed interview schedules, and I say that with the assumption that you know what I'm talking about. Taking a step back, for those that don't, you have two types of interviews in Oracle recruiting. You have the hiring team managed. I say like the traditional interview, right? That the manager, recruiter, or interview coordinator, somebody's checking calendars, checking availability, and sending out the invites, right? Well, the other one is candidate managed, where you can have the candidate, you open up time slots for the candidate to pick the availability. And you can do that today without Booster. You can open up a window of time that this afternoon from 1 to 4, we have open interviews. And candidates can come, and as they take slots, they come off the table, right? And you have available slots for my open interviews this afternoon. You can do that without Recruiting Booster. The problem, if you will, with that, for better or worse, is that it's not dynamic. And that's what I like, is that Booster makes that dynamic, in the sense that if all of a sudden Lowry puts a webinar on my calendar this afternoon in the middle of my open interview slots, well, this 1 to 2 o'clock just went away, right? Without me having to update the interview schedule or do anything, it just magically takes that one away and off the table from the available slots. So long story short, that candidate managed works in conjunction, Booster plus the Outlook integration, I should say Office 365 integration. Those two powers combined allow for a dynamic calendar on the candidate managed interviews. Okay, so that's the candidate side of it, the benefits that, at least today, current functionality. If you say, Matt, could we set this up tomorrow? It's like, yeah, let's do it. That's something that we could set up tomorrow. So the other pieces that you could go ahead and set up tomorrow would be the personas that I just mentioned. And I know these thumbnails are tiny. I'm going to log in and show you from these 3 different views. But from the recruiter or manager, you can submit requests for an interview to be scheduled. Those get routed to your interview coordinator. Interview coordinator gets the notification and says, yep, I'm on it. And then the interviewers can now have, under employee self-service, under me, they can see the dashboard of my interviews. So it gives this view without having especially for the user that doesn't normally live and breathe in Oracle recruiting, it gives this other area for the interview coordinator to work out of. So he or she does not have to drill down into a requisition, into a candidate, into the interviews tab to see what's going on there. No, instead, it's in one spot, in one separate dashboard or work area, if you will. And same deal as an interviewer, a person that doesn't normally live and breathe in Oracle recruiting, one-stop shop, that dashboard, that area where I can see my interviews. Let me show you really quick. And then I promise I'll stop rambling on, or at least give you a chance to talk. All right, so here I am, me, Matt, employee self-service. You may have renamed it something else, but think wherever your employee self-service stuff is, most folks have it as me, but anyway. You have under here the section for interviews. And Matt, like super user in demo pod, has a buku stuff, as you saw. Like if I did show more in most pods, like you're not going to see all that stuff. So just fear not. All right, so nothing today. Looking good. Let's see, did I got anything? Next week I got an interview with Rhonda here. So, if I'm frequently interviewing and seeing what's going on, I can take a look ahead and see. And of course, like I'm getting notified along the way if there's updates to my interview that I have scheduled and stuff. So it's not like this is like the proactive thing. It's not an expectation that somebody's frequently coming in here, unless of course Matt is often interviewing folks. If I know that just right now is busy season, we're ramping up, for our next wave of hires from our spring grads that are coming through. So maybe I am interviewing a bunch, right? And so I am, and I can look at this and see, okay, Rhonda, not telling me a whole lot. What's great is you might hope or expect, I can click on that and I can see the high level details of what's going on here. I see that this interview's out in LA. Guess I gotta get a ticket booked here really soon. That's next week. Dang. So yeah, I guess I'm going out to LA next week, and I have our interviewers here. We have our notes of the candidate and everything else. So, and I can respond. I hadn't yet responded to this, but that's from me. I spoke to the candidate, that dynamic candidate managed one. Me as an interviewer, I have this new work area that's brought to fruition from Booster. I'll show you really quick from the interview coordinator perspective, and then bring it all back to the recruiter's side of the house. Same deal with Rose. She does a lot of things. She wears many hats, but a pure interview coordinator, I would expect when they log in, they would have me for employee self-service, and then like under my client groups or whatever you've named it, you would see the interview tile, enabled. So, your interview coordinator, unless they're wearing many hats and doing a bunch of stuff like Rose does, they wouldn't have all of this stuff here. In short, just look past the other stuff. All right. So what we have here is that coordinate interviews. That's where our interview coordinator would really live and breathe. And like we see here, just this clean dashboard. When I walk in here as Rose, as our interview coordinator, she sees right away a default filter of interviews requested. She knows that these are the ones she really needs to focus on. Now she strikes this filter, she can come through and see that, oh yeah, let's see, this is, we sent an invite, so she needs to check in on Tiffany and maybe send her a reminder, see what's going on. She can do that. She sees that this interview is scheduled, but the default filter when Rose walks in here is really front and center the interviews that need to be scheduled. And how does that happen and where does that come from? is from the recruiter or manager, somebody on the hiring team requesting Rose to coordinate this interview. It's really short, it's really sweet, and I'll show that to you in just one moment. I'm kind of backing into this one. Um, so we have that Josh and Barry both, the interviews are requested. And so Rose can see that here. She can see that the requisition. She can see the candidate details, and we have this just this deep link that takes them right here. So as she can go in here and schedule the interview, again reducing so many clicks for Rose. Because before this, Rose without Booster may still be the one scheduling interviews. She may still be the interview coordinator. I'm not saying that we're adding a head count. We didn't add Rose. We're just making Rose's life a lot easier because before Conrad's asking for her to schedule an interview, she's going into hiring, pulling up this requisition, then pulling up Josh, and then going to the interviews tab to finally be able to schedule the interview. For better or worse, the good news for Rose, a big sigh of relief, that she just is able to have this clean dashboard now. All right. Um, and she can come back and see the scheduled interviews. If she herself had any interviews coming up, great. Availability requests, feedback. So she is actively playing a role in interviewing as well. If she's playing an active role in interviewing as well, she would have those actions also beyond just scheduling the interviews and seeing that dashboard of the interviews scheduled. But what I didn't shine a spotlight on before I went straight to the deep link here is just the request that, we have the manager, Matt, requested by Conrad. We're looking for an hour of time. Matt's going to be doing this interview and just, hey, please schedule this in-person interview for the candidate as soon as possible, just based on their availability. All right, great. And then once it's scheduled, she can update the status of this request. So I put a little bit of emphasis on request, and that is a good segue to Conrad's view. Let's bring it on back, and then I'll go to next steps here. All right, so old Conrad. Let's pull up our intern requisition. Pick one, anyone. All right. All right, so we got Beth. Maybe we have all of them. I had already done this, but actually I don't think Beth has joined the party in the interview piece of it. All right, so as we look at this, and actually I could shine a big old spotlight on this one too, add to event, right? Like maybe these folks had already applied and it's like, hey, actually we have this happy hour coming up for them, or this little event, Top Golf, whatever we're doing, and we want to invite them. I could add these applicants to the event. I mentioned how you could post events. Here I go again, going back to events. But anyway, you can post events. You can get a pull candidates from a candidate pool to events. You can pull candidates from a rec to events as well. All right, so here we go. Request interview to be scheduled. That's the one. Getting back to topic here. Request interview to be scheduled. I got these three. It's like, actually, Josh is already in play. So I just got Beth and Barry. Gonna ask Rose to do this. I'll have Matt be the interviewer. You know what? Lowry's coming too. There he is. All right. Have this in person and just an hour of time. If I could type today. Cool. And then submit. and the request is on the way, right? So again, that scenario that we have that interview coordinator, that Rose is there to help Conrad. Again, his April's bonkers with all those events going on. He's traveling out to LA, I guess, or I guess that's me. Um, and we have Rose. Rose can take this and run with it. She can then go coordinate, schedule the interviews, and then Conrad, the recruiter, is notified along the way that she's got it covered. So just wanted to kind of walk through that new piece of the puzzle as well as it relates to that interview efficiency that I had kind of put in that column for this. Okay, so um, just a couple things as far as next steps go, kind of stepping away from demo, show and tell piece to next steps, and then finally to Q&A. As far as next steps go, procure a license. So if you haven't already, start a conversation with your Oracle rep, right? So recruiting booster, as you may or may not know, I get that question a lot. It's like, is that it comes with? How do I get it? What do I do? First step, open a dialogue with your Oracle rep if you haven't already. It is a separate offering. Um, is it its own project in and of itself? Not necessarily. A lot of these features that I showed today, again, no smoke and mirrors. We could go in tomorrow and set up a lot of these things. There's a lot of quick wins that you can get with this. The prerequisite, having the license. Once you have the license, you can enable the offering and set up a few of these things that we saw right out of the gate. Other things could become a project in itself. How or why? How deep, how far do you want to go with the chatbot, right? There's a lot of delivered things that are available, but maybe you take a step back and think about it enterprise wide, that you want it to do all sorts of other things. That then would bleed into probably Oracle Digital Assistant, ODA, the acronym. Um, so, like events that you want to customize and have a bunch of templates. So you probably know your organization better than anybody that, for the notifications, if you personalize and tweak every single notification, well, guess what? With Booster and our events, there's a handful of notifications that you'd want to wordsmith, maybe work with marketing branding to get your stock images in line. And that bleeds into then the pre-project planning, everything that I just mentioned. Okay, so you started your dialogue with your Oracle rep, you're working through getting the license. In parallel to that, you can go ahead and get your ducks in a row for the project itself. You could identify stock images that you want to use for your events. You could start wordsmithing event notifications. If you don't yet have Office 365 enabled and or SMS enabled, you could get those pieces moving. You don't need a recruiting booster to get those pieces enabled. So again, lots of things that you can do pre-project, if you will, before even starting to set that up. All right, and then last piece here, upcoming webinars. I mentioned ODA a couple times. Hey, guess what? We have an upcoming webinar coming up for ODA, Oracle Digital Assistant. So today I spoke about current functionality that you can use with Oracle Recruiting and Recruiting Booster that doesn't require that separate offering, that separate license of ODA. But that can bleed into, ODA isn't necessarily just a recruiting function, right? So if you want to roll it out enterprise wide, not just across Oracle, but maybe other systems. Anyway, upcoming webinar on ODA as the full thing, right? And then another one is for LMS, for learning. So we have 2 upcoming webinars. Stay tuned. Just how you heard about this one, be it from LinkedIn, email blast, whatever, we'll be getting those scheduled here soon. So stay tuned for some upcoming webinars. All right. Lastly, I apologize, y'all, that I left a whopping 10 minutes for Q&A. I apologies.
Okay.
That's selfish. Let
So Matt,
me, yeah,
I
go
think
ahead.
we have a question in the chat from Dawn. Does the interview scheduler integrate with MS Teams?
It doesn't. It's a good question. Office, the delivered integration itself, there is an enhancement. Booster aside, there's an enhancement where if you have Office 365 enabled, there's a little checkbox to enable Teams. And long story short, and the short answer is yes. And I say that because I can choose the interview type of in-person, phone, or web. And if I pick web and I have that Teams piece enabled from the Office 365 integration, it can, I pick who the organizer is, and it auto magically generates a link for that interview from that person. I know time doesn't allow for it, but I could actually show it. But short answer is yes, it can do that. And you don't need Booster for that.
Perfect. So we'll open up the floor. I know everybody's on mute, but if you want to, if you have a question, just put it in the chat, put it in the QA, or just mention, hey, I've got a question. We'll bring you off mute and get your questions answered.
Not everybody at once. And maybe they're typing. I can't see it while I'm
Jackie's
sharing this.
typing. We can
All
count
right.
on Jackie for a question.
Yeah.
So Amy put a question in the Q&A. I believe I responded to it. Let's see. Do managers have the calendar interview function?
Related to the interview scheduling piece, I assume, or the request, I would say yes. Yeah, like I was logged in as Conrad, but if I was logged in just as a pure hiring manager, you could have that. As you may expect, um, a lot of that's controlled by privileges. So if you're like me, I don't really want that, um, you could strike it. But the short answer is yeah, they would or could, request for Rose to coordinate an interview as well.
So Mark, I know you asked that question. I was taking you off mute. Why don't I do this? I'll take everybody off of mute and make sure you're on mute if you're not talking. But Mark, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it answers it. Thank you.
All right, Amy, you are coming off of mute right now. So if you want to take yourself off mute, you can ask your question.
Thanks. I had a bunch of questions. So one is for two-way messaging. What is the communication to the recruiter that a candidate has responded?
It's a good question. So right now it's contained in that conversation. So I guess short answer, there's not a notification to Conrad saying that George had responded, for better or worse. One thing that we've looked at is having a bursting notification in the interim until that piece is addressed in a future release.
Okay, thank you. For interview scheduling, I have a bunch just because we do use currently a different vendor. So
Okay.
for capabilities, I just want to see what is the same and what's different. So is interview scheduling the notification for a candidate to choose a time if you go to the route of where you provide times or they're able to choose a time based on calendars? Is it only email or is it email and SMS?
Um, let me follow up with you on that, Amy. I believe it's just email, but I don't want to misspeak on that.
Okay. Can interviews be scheduled for non-hiring team members?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Will the calendar invites be sent to the interviewer's Outlook calendar, seeing as how it is integrated with Office 365? And would the interviewer be able to action accordingly via Outlook, whether they decline or need to propose a new time, or is it only strictly done within the MCI? Oh, I'm sorry, through HCM?
There is that integration, but the prerequisite is that that Office 365 integration being enabled. But those
Okay.
features do become available with that. And I
Okay.
know I may sound like a broken record, but that piece is not reliant on Booster. Booster just
Correct.
takes it one step further.
Yep. But then once that is integrated, then all the actions that you showed within the system, the interviewers would actually then be able to action based on the Outlook calendar invite.
Right. So it can capture the response. Now, like the proposed new time and some of those Outlook features aren't
Hmm.
currently part of it. But as far as capturing the response, yeah.
Okay. Is there anything coming potentially of where maybe someone declined and yes, it would register it, but then like a notification would come and be like, are you looking to reschedule or are you looking to cancel? Just so that then as a candidate, if you think about a candidate lens, you're not left in that black hole.
Yeah. I'm just making a quick note of that, Amy,
Okay.
to check the roadmap on that.
Okay, perfect. And then what will
And
be in, go ahead, Larry.
sorry, and based on that status, we could probably send out a burst notification to them with your language, telling them to do that. It wouldn't be coming from the recruiting area, but at least you've got something for now.
But then how would they action, Lowry? So if a coordinator is scheduling and the interviewer gets the invite, if a burst notification goes out with those two options, would it link back in order to then kick off a conversation with the interviewee to allow them new times to choose from?
Yeah, absolutely. It would be a fairly static email that basically says, "Hey, we noticed you've declined, or we've noticed that you've, taken another action.
Hmm.
Please click this link to go back in the system and select another time, or please reach
Okay.
out to your recruiter." And we can send that to the candidate and to the recruiter, so at least everybody's aware that that happened, and then what the next
Okay.
step is. But it
So
wouldn't
it wouldn't be
it wouldn't be
automatic.
exactly right.
Okay. And then for the invite for the actual interview, what is included? Are resumes included? Could we include interview guides? Could we include summaries of candidates? What's actually included in that invite for the interview, both to the candidate as well as the interviewer?
Yeah, so you're in control of that. You have a few high-level options, like to include the resume, the job posting, and the candidate information. So
Okay.
you do have that, and then within the interviewer notification, you could still bake in links. So
Hmm.
wherever that may be hosted, like say for example, if you have your interview guides or whatever, that
Yep.
you could have a link to that
Okay.
respective thing.
And can this be um, phone, virtual, or Teams or WebEx, or on site? And if on site, can we also integrate with our conference rooms?
Mm. Um, like to have the conference room, like where it just automatically pulls that or whatever. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. So like the
Like or
only
cleans it.
yep, so the only options that a candidate would get in order to choose accordingly would be based on the interviewer, interviewer's availability plus availability of a room to do the interview at or in.
Gotcha. So currently, uh, I guess short answer to the question is that you do have phone, web, or in person. With
Mhm.
in person, it's really up to the interview coordinator for that location that they're entering. So the short answer is that the ORC will not be looking at all of your conference rooms to find an available spot. Not currently, at least,
Okay.
but we could definitely talk through that. Or
Okay. Okay. I think those are all my questions. Thank you. I know there was a lot, but thank you.
no,
Yeah,
that's
no,
great.
thank you for the great questions. And if you want to schedule a follow-up, we're happy to jump on with you, Amy, and
Yeah.
go through it. All right. I know we're at the top of the hour here. So if anybody has any questions in the chat that we didn't have time to get to, we will reach out to you directly and make sure we get your questions answered or get some time set up to discuss it. Thank you all very much for joining. I hope this was beneficial for everybody. Um, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to Matt or myself or Mike, and we can help you from here. So thanks, everybody. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you all.